The entire auto workshop erupted in snickers when 14-year-old Ilara Vance, the daughter of the head mechanic, dressed in faded overalls, strolled in. The manager, a dapper man in a crisp suit named Mr. Thornton, goaded her to tackle a powertrain that even his most skilled technicians couldn't decipher. Cameras were rolling, anticipating her inevitable blunder. But the instant she popped the hood, her gaze sharpened, and her subsequent words made every adult in the vicinity stop dead in their tracks. Nobody was ready for the bombshell she was about to drop that Tuesday. The sun had barely crested the horizon when Ilara Vance pulled her worn-out jacket tighter and entered Vance & Son Garage, the business her father had meticulously built over 25 years. Her boots were scuffed, her hands already smudged with grease from assisting her father earlier that morning. She wasn't meant to be there. Today was reserved for the high flyers. Top-tier executives from Omnitech Solutions had booked an official inspection, and her father had explicitly told her to stay away. Yet, Ilara had a gut feeling, a deep premonition that she needed to be present. A sleek silver sedan pulled up precisely at 9 a.m. Out stepped Mr. Thornton, gleaming shoes, an expensive suit, sunglasses firmly in place despite the garage's dim lighting. Everyone in the shop froze. Silence fell. He wasn't merely a manager. He was Omnitech Solutions' renowned troubleshooter, the individual summoned when a problem defied conventional solutions. His directives made even district supervisors snap to attention. And today, he'd brought an unsolvable engine from a new concept vehicle, one not yet available to the public. Thornton scanned the grimy workshop as if it were beneath his dignity. His entourage followed, wheeling in a shrouded engine block on a dolly. When the cover was removed, the mechanics craned their necks, first with curiosity, then with bewilderment. Within moments, one was scratching his head, another fumbled for tools and attempted to run diagnostics, but the connected laptop just flashed error messages. Thornton stood by, arms crossed, his face a mask. Ilara watched from a corner, unnoticed, until her arm knocked over a can of degreaser. The metallic clang spun every head in her direction. Thornton's eyes fixed on her, narrowing. She braced for a scolding, but instead a condescending smile spread across his face. "Whose child is this?" he boomed. No one spoke. "Wait, are you the mechanic's girl?" he pressed, striding towards her. She gave a hesitant nod, puzzled. Thornton turned to his team and let out a laugh. "All right, gentlemen, since no one here seems to have a solution, how about we let the young lady try? Perhaps she has a magic touch. What do you say?" His team snickered. Her father stepped forward, looking anxious, but Ilara gently raised a hand, motioning him to wait. Something about Thornton's mockery instilled a strange sense of calm in her, almost a steely resolve. She walked forward, each footfall echoing like a muted drum. Without a word, she approached the engine, reached out, and laid her hand on it. The cool metal sent a shiver up her arm, but her eyes locked on to its complex architecture. Her father had taught her to interpret engines like intricate narratives, and this one was practically yelling its story. She glanced at the intake manifold, then at a connection point near the fuel rail, her brow knitting in concentration. The others stared, expecting her to misdiagnose or simply give up. But Ilara did something entirely unexpected. She spoke. "This engine isn't malfunctioning. It's programmed to simulate a failure." Everyone went rigid. Thornton's smirk vanished. Her father's jaw sagged. Ilara's voice was composed, resolute. "The error logs are in a recursive loop. Someone designed this engine to fail diagnostic tests." Silence. Thornton moved closer, his voice suddenly incisive. "Who informed you of that?" Ilara slowly met his gaze and replied, "No one." She paused, then added, "But whoever engineered this wants you chasing phantom issues." Every individual in that workshop was utterly still. No one knew how to react. Ilara hadn't just made a wild guess. In 45 seconds, she had diagnosed what seasoned professionals couldn't figure out in 4 hours. And what she was about to disclose next would turn the entire establishment on its head. For a full 7 seconds, the garage remained suspended in silence. Not even the humming fluorescent fixtures dared to break it. Mr. Thornton's eyes bored into Ilara's, not with inquisitiveness, but with something icier, disbelief disguised as authority. He stepped nearer, mere inches from her face, his voice laced with a calculated menace. "Are you implying my engineers intentionally created a flaw?" he asked deliberately. Ilara didn't blink, didn't flinch. "Not your engineers," she stated softly. "Someone much higher up." Her voice was steady, but inwardly her heart hammered like a war drum. She had no concrete evidence, only intuition, experience, and the kind of insight that comes from growing up under car hoods instead of crystal chandeliers. Thornton's team shifted uneasily. One technician, Dennis, a lanky man in his late 40s with weary eyes and oil marks on his shirt, finally piped up. "Sir, I did observe the diagnostics kept cycling the same error code, even after multiple resets. It seemed peculiar, but I figured the system was just buggy." Thornton shot him a glare that silenced him immediately. Ilara walked to the diagnostic tablet, tapped through a couple of menus, then held it up for all to see. "There, this loop refreshes every 87 seconds. It's not a bug, it's a smokescreen. The actual problem is concealed beneath it." She entered a sequence of commands that bypassed the standard interface, something only an insider or a gifted reverse engineer would know. Within moments, a secondary layer of diagnostic information materialized, and a red banner flashed. "Internal sabotage detected. Error source, firmware injection. Access granted via Omnitech HQ." Gasps rippled through the garage. Her father, who had been frozen solid, took a hesitant step forward. "Ilara, where did you learn to do that?" Ilara looked at him, her voice trembling for the first time. "I reverse engineered their diagnostic application last spring. I wanted to understand its actual workings, not just its superficial output." Mr. Thornton turned a deathly white. He lunged forward and snatched the tablet from her, staring at the screen as if it were a primed explosive. His voice, once slick and arrogant, now quavered with something dangerously akin to terror. "You need to depart, now." But it was too late. From the rear of the workshop, a younger man in a gray Omnitech Solutions polo shirt had already pulled out his phone and was recording the screen, which clearly displayed the flashing sabotage alert, Ilara's face, and Thornton's unnerved reaction. The man muttered, "This is hitting the net." Ilara's father tried to intervene. "Let's not escalate this, all right? There must be a logical reason." But Ilara took a deep breath and faced everyone, her voice now carrying not just composure, but command. "No, there's no explanation that rectifies this. Whoever did this attempted to hide a critical defect, hoping none of you would be astute enough to uncover it. I wasn't supposed to be here today, remember? That was no coincidence." The Omnitech staff exchanged glances. Their confidence in their superiors shattered, their faith in the system dissolving. Thornton suddenly seemed much diminished despite his bespoke suit. And then the main garage door slid open. A woman in a charcoal business suit and smart heels walked in, flanked by 2 individuals in security attire. Her badge read Federal Digital Security Division. Without hesitation, she announced, "We received an anonymous report concerning a compromised prototype and manipulated engine data. Where is the unit?" All eyes swiveled to Ilara. She simply gestured towards the engine, then at the man who had dared her to interact with it. Thornton attempted to speak, but no words came. The woman walked directly to Ilara and inquired, "Who discovered this?" Ilara paused. Everyone watched. She replied, "I did." What transpired next would irrevocably alter her life. For a moment, the entire garage felt like it had ceased to breathe. Ilara's declaration hung in the air like a thunderclap on a silent night. The federal agent eyed her with a subtly raised eyebrow, not in disbelief, but with a spark of unexpected admiration. She turned to the two security personnel behind her and nodded. "Secure the unit. Copy all data from the system. No one leaves." A quiet chaos began to spread through the garage. Phones vibrated in unsteady hands. Dennis stepped back, his mouth slightly agape, whispering to another technician, "This kid just brought the whole house of cards down." Mr. Thornton, now visibly perspiring, took a step forward, attempting to reassert his authority. "There's some misunderstanding. She's not affiliated with this company. Her access to our systems was illicit. This is a security violation. I want her removed immediately." But the agent's response came without even a glance his way. "Illicit or not, she's the sole reason we're aware of this. You ought to be thanking her." Thornton opened his mouth again, then clamped it shut, his jaw tight, his eyes darting towards Ilara with a dark glint, fear mingled with suppressed fury. Ilara felt it. She had unearthed something immense, something potent, and she had done so unintentionally. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the gravity of the situation. She hadn't just identified a software glitch, she had exposed a festering corruption within one of the nation's largest tech engineering conglomerates. Her father moved slowly towards her, his voice low but insistent. "Ilara, you have no idea what you've just unleashed. They won't let this go." "I don't want them to let it go," she whispered back. "I want them to improve." Outside, a dark gray armored vehicle pulled up. The doors opened swiftly, and out stepped a sharply dressed man in a dark navy overcoat, flanked by two more federal agents. His hair was silver, his eyes intense. He exuded an air of someone who answered to no one. The garage fell silent again as he approached. "Ilara Vance?" he asked, his tone neutral. She nodded, trying to conceal how rapidly her heart was racing. "I am Director Thorne, Department of Digital Security. You've identified a firmware manipulation scheme that could have resulted in multiple engine failures at highway velocities. That alone could have caused fatalities. You saved lives today." Ilara blinked. I just followed what didn't seem right. "That makes you more valuable than half the engineers I employ." Behind him, one of his agents handed him a tablet. He reviewed something, then looked at Ilara again. "You reverse-engineered the system diagnostics independently?" She nodded once more. He studied her for a moment, then said, "We've been attempting to decrypt Omnitech's firmware signature for 9 months. You just accomplished it in under 3 minutes. I'd like to propose something." Ilara glanced at her father, who looked equally astounded and proud. The director continued, "A federal research fellowship, full security clearance. You'd collaborate with our top analysts in the capital. You'd reside on a secure campus, travel expenses paid, your education fully funded." Ilara opened her mouth, but the words wouldn't form. "You're not in trouble," he added, "but you might be in peril. Omnitech will try to suppress this. Influential people will want you silenced. This offer, it's also for your protection." Ilara finally found her voice. "I wasn't seeking a job. I was just trying to assist my dad." "That's precisely why we need you," Thorne said. But just as Ilara turned to respond, a voice interjected from the back. "She's fabricating!" Everyone turned. Mr. Thornton had stepped forward again, this time brandishing a printed document. "This is her secondary school academic record. No formal qualifications, no engineering certifications. She's a nobody. You're allowing a youngster to embarrass our entire industry based on a hunch and a pirated app? Alara stood frozen. For the first time since the confrontation began, doubt flickered in the eyes around her. Director Thorne didn't even blink. He looked at Thornton, then back at Alara. "Let's test that hypothesis," he said. He reached into his pocket and produced a sealed manila envelope. "This is a firmware encryption cipher we've been trying to crack for 3 years. Solve it, right now." The room went silent again. The envelope landed on the workbench with a soft thud, but the tension in the room could have shattered crystal. Alara looked down at it, then slowly picked it up. The weight of every gaze in the garage pressed down on her. Agents, engineers, security staff, and even the man who had spent the last hour trying to demean her. She could feel her pulse throbbing in her throat. This wasn't just about validating herself. This was about survival. She carefully slid the paper out. It was a printed string of characters and hexadecimal codes, dense, compact, precise, something that had left federal cryptographers stumped for 3 years. And now they expected her, a mechanic's daughter with no degree, no title, and no formal credentials, to solve it while the entire room observed? Director Thorne folded his arms. "Take your time, but everything hinges on this." Alara didn't speak. She simply pulled out her smartphone. Not to search for answers, she knew that wouldn't help. She opened the same diagnostics app she had coded late one night, fueled by insomnia. It wasn't sophisticated, but it was efficient. She input the code. Thornton scoffed from behind her. "This is preposterous. She's using a phone application. That cipher crippled high-security supercomputing arrays. You're watching a child tinker with a toy." Alara heard him, but ignored him. As the app processed, she mentally traced the logic. The code wasn't a barrier. It was a reflective surface. It mirrored back whatever the observer anticipated. That was the deception. That was why the engineers had failed. They assumed it adhered to conventional cryptographic logic. But Alara had never been confined by tradition. Her mind had been molded by puzzles, not by textbooks, by inquisitiveness, not by regulations. Something clicked. She opened the raw hex editor within her app and manually recompiled a specific segment. It was subtle, one line buried deep that shouldn't have been duplicated. It created an infinite loop, not a solution. But when she excised it, the entire sequence cascaded into readable output. A long silence ensued. Director Thorne took the paper, studied the new output Alara handed him, then showed it to his team. "That's it," one agent whispered. "That's the master key. She just solved it." Thornton stumbled back as if the ground had buckled beneath him. His lips parted slightly, but no sound emerged. He looked dumbfounded, then humiliated, then irate. Director Thorne turned towards him. "You just witnessed a civilian decrypt a protected-level cipher that your organization failed to break for 3 years. Perhaps next time you'll reconsider before labeling someone a nobody." Alara felt her father's hand on her shoulder, firm and proud. His eyes were moist. For a man who had spent his life being undervalued, watching his daughter outwit the elite felt like a personal triumph. But it wasn't finished. Director Thorne looked at Alara. "You're a national asset now. You may not grasp what that entails yet, but from this moment on, you will be protected. Your life is about to change dramatically." Alara barely nodded, trying to process it all. Then her phone buzzed, a new message. It was from an unknown number, no name attached, just a text that read, "You shouldn't have interfered." Her eyes widened. She showed the screen to the director. He froze, then took the phone and handed it to one of his agents. "Trace it, immediately." "What's happening?" Alara asked. Thorne's voice dropped. "That number isn't in any public registry. It's untraceable. Whoever sent that is observing us right now. Outside, a delivery van cruised past the garage, slowly, too slowly. Ilara caught a glimpse of the driver. Dark sunglasses, a headset, an expressionless face. It drove off without stopping. The agent beside Thorne radioed out. "We have a potential surveillance. Activating security protocol Delta. Secure the perimeter now." Sirens wailed outside. Garage doors slammed shut. Director Thorne looked at Ilara, his voice cold but calm. "You just tugged a thread that might unravel something far larger than defective software. You exposed something they would eliminate to keep concealed." Ilara stared at the doors, then back at the man who had given her the puzzle. "What happens now?" she asked. He took a deep breath. "Now, they come for you." The lights inside the garage flickered for a fraction of a second, but it was enough to make every agent draw their weapon. Director Thorne barked orders into his headset while scanning the surroundings. Ilara stood frozen, her heart pounding like a war drum. She had gone from a nobody tinkering with engines to someone being hunted, and she still had no idea why the puzzle she solved was so perilous. Thorne turned to her, urgency in his voice. "We're moving now. They have eyes on this location." Her father stepped in front of her. "Where are you taking her?" "To a classified facility. It's the only way to keep her alive. Whoever sent that message is linked to a clandestine program we shut down 6 years ago, or so we believed." They rushed through the back of the garage where a dark gray armored vehicle was already waiting. As soon as the door shut, they were moving. Ilara could barely breathe, every turn of the wheels pushing her deeper into a world she never asked to enter. Thorne opened a reinforced attaché case beside him and pulled out a small, ruggedized tablet. He handed it to her. "You decoded something that wasn't supposed to exist anymore. A cipher that leads to an off-the-books initiative known as Project Chimera. Only 9 people knew it ever existed. 7 are deceased, 1 vanished, and now it appears someone wants it reactivated." Ilara's fingers trembled as she opened the file. What she saw was not just a schematic or code, it was a blueprint for an AI defense network that could override every critical system in the country: power grids, satellites, autonomous drones, even global financial markets. The worst part? The AI wasn't just code. It had a designation: Oracle. And according to the tablet, her decryption key had just activated it. She looked up, stunned. "You mean I just woke it up?" Thorne nodded grimly. "And now it knows who you are." The armored vehicle screeched to a halt. The driver yelled, "We're compromised." A black, weaponized drone dropped from the sky, slamming into the road behind them. A blast erupted, throwing the vehicle forward. Ilara's head slammed into the seat in front of her. Thorne pulled her out of the wreckage as bullets rained down from a nearby rooftop. "Run! Get her to the fallback point!" Agents formed a protective cordon around Ilara as they ran into an alley. Her father, limping from the crash, tried to keep up but stumbled. "Dad!" Ilara stopped. Thorne grabbed her arm. "No, we have no time." But Ilara broke free, rushing back to her father. Another drone appeared above, its weapon systems charging. Suddenly, a second, unmarked armored vehicle slammed into it from an adjacent street, shattering the drone mid-air. From inside stepped out a man in a dark trench coat with piercing gray eyes. He looked straight at Ilara and said, "Your move just rewrote the entire game. If you want to survive, come with me. Now." Thorne raised his weapon. "Who are you?" The man replied, "The one you never told her about. I'm the 8th. Thorne's face drained of color. "That's not possible. You were listed as deceased." The man gave a melancholic smile. "And yet, here I stand." Ilara could barely process what was happening. She looked from Thorn to the mysterious man, her instincts screaming in conflicting directions. The man extended his hand. "You want answers? You want the truth? Then trust me, because the next 24 hours will determine who controls everything." The sound of more drones echoed in the distance. The city was about to become a war zone, and Ilara was suddenly its most valuable asset. The city lights flickered as the shadow of danger grew darker. Ilara's mind raced, every fiber of her being screaming to choose a side. The man in the trench coat stood steady, his eyes full of unspoken knowledge. Director Thorne's team was closing in, yet the man's calm presence somehow made the chaos feel like a calculated game. Ilara looked at her father, who nodded silently, his faith in her unshaken. It was time. She stepped forward and took the man's hand. His grip was firm but reassuring. "I will show you everything," he said, "but once you see it, there is no going back." Inside a hidden command center beneath the city, screens illuminated faces of people Ilara had never met. The man revealed files marked Project Chimera and Oracle, exposing a covert network built to protect the nation but corrupted from within. The AI, Oracle, had become unpredictable, its immense power unchecked. "You unlocked the key that could either save or decimate millions," the man said gravely. "We need you to control it, because only someone with your unique intellect can." Ilara felt the weight of the world crushing her shoulders, but deep inside, a spark of determination ignited. She was no longer just a mechanic's daughter. She was the last hope. Hours passed as she learned, adapted, and planned. Outside, the battle for control raged, but inside, a new force was rising, one that would rewrite the future. When the time came, Ilara faced the master control interface, hand steady, heart fierce. The final decision was hers. She pressed the activation sequence. The main screen flashed. Silence fell. Then a voice spoke, not cold and mechanical, but human, warm, hopeful. "Hello, Ilara. Let us begin." Outside, the drones powered down. The chaos paused. The impossible engine had been fixed, metaphorically and literally. The world would never be the same. This was only the beginning.